The sky above the forgotten moon was quiet. No ships, no voices, just wind. A broken sound beeped again and again from the sand, almost too weak to notice. Jace, a human mechanic, stood at the edge of the sand dune, blinking at the signal coming from his old scanner. He had been salvaging parts from dead satellites, but this signal, this one was different. It wasn't from any human tech. It was ancient and alien. He walked toward the source, his boots sinking into the soft red sand. Each beep grew louder. His scanner showed one word on the cracked screen: warning. Finally, Jace found the beacon. It was half buried under dirt and metal scrap. Its lights barely blinked and its surface was covered in rust. Strange alien symbols were carved into it. They pulsed weakly with blue light, like something still alive underneath. Jace crouched down. He wiped the dust from the top and found a small handle. With a grunt, he pulled it open and the ground below him rumbled. A metal door in the sand opened slowly with a hiss. Heat blasted out. Dry air that smelled of smoke and old fire touched his face. Jace's heart beat faster. Whatever was inside hadn't seen the sky in a very, very long time. He climbed down a short tunnel that led to a wide chamber. The walls were black, burned, and broken. In the center, surrounded by chains and metal spikes, lay a massive creature. Its body was curled like a sleeping dog, but its skin was not fur. It was silver, cracked like dry earth with glowing blue veins running through it. Long horns curled back from its head. Its wings were folded tightly, covered in dust. It was a dragon. No, something even older. Jace stepped back in shock. He had heard stories about alien beasts, old war monsters, guardians of the stars. But none of those were real. They were bedtime tales. And yet, this one was real. The dragon didn't move. But as Jace watched, he saw the creature's throat move slightly. Just a weak breath. He looked around. Old machines were blinking in the corners. Chains still held the dragon down, even though it clearly hadn't moved in years. The walls were marked with burn scars. Something terrible had happened here. "Hello?" Jace said quietly. No answer. He took out a flashlight and stepped closer. The dragon's eye was closed, but something about it, something felt alive. He touched one of the chains. It was cold and buzzing, still active. And then, he heard it. Not with his ears, but inside his mind. A deep, broken voice whispered, "Water." Jace jumped back. "Who said that?" The voice came again. "Please, water." The dragon's mouth opened slightly. Its tongue, cracked and dry, barely moved. Its skin was peeling in places, metal scales falling off like old leaves. Jace's hand went to his side. He carried a canteen, just a small one for his own use. He looked at it, then at the creature. He didn't know why, but he stepped forward and opened the canteen. The dragon's eye opened just a little. It was glowing, blue, but dim, like the last spark before darkness. Jace held the canteen over its mouth and let a few drops fall. The moment the water touched its tongue, the dragon's throat moved. A soft rumble came from its chest. Then, a single spark of blue fire escaped its nostril. Jace stepped back, shocked, but the flame didn't burn him. It was weak, gentle. He stared at the creature. It had been here, alive, dying slowly, for who knows how long. "Who did this to you?" he asked softly. The voice came again. 100 years. No light, no drink. You are first. Jace's hands trembled. He realized this wasn't a monster. This was a prisoner. He looked around the chamber again. There were panels on the walls, controls, probably from whoever built this place. Maybe they had locked the creature here. Maybe it was dangerous, but as Jace looked into that half-open eye, he saw no hate, no rage, only pain, and a strange feeling of hope. He took a deep breath. "I'll help you. The dragon's tail moved slightly, just once. That was all. Jace turned toward the control panels. They were old and broken, but he was a mechanic. This is what he did, and now, he wasn't just fixing machines. He was waking a legend. Jace didn't sleep that night. He sat by the edge of the pit, staring down at the massive silver-scaled dragon Sailor. That was its name. It had whispered it into his mind after he gave it just 3 drops of water. That whisper still echoed in his thoughts. I am Sailor, guardian of the 5th flame, left to dry, to die. Jace's hands were covered in dust and oil as he worked on one of the control panels near the chain locks. The systems were old, alien old. They used light paths instead of wires, and symbols instead of buttons. But Jace was clever. Machines always spoke to him, even when they didn't use words. The dragon hadn't moved much, but every time Jace looked at him, the glowing blue eye blinked once, like it was watching him with deep, ancient patience. Then came the moment. A long, low breath came from the dragon's chest, louder than before. A tiny puff of smoke rose from its nostrils. "Are you in pain?" Jace asked, speaking out loud, even though the dragon replied only in his head. "Yes, but not from the chains. From the thirst. A thirst that burned my soul." Jace swallowed. The small canteen at his hip was almost empty. If he gave the rest to the dragon, he wouldn't have enough for himself on the way back to his ship. But he didn't even hesitate. He knelt beside the beast's head and slowly poured the last of his water between Sailor's cracked lips. The response was instant. A soft hum began deep within Sailor's chest. His wings twitched. His claws scraped against the stone floor. A wave of heat surrounded him. "Whoa!" Jace jumped back, shielding his face as the air around the dragon shimmered like fire over a desert. Then it happened. Whoom! A small burst of blue flame exploded from Sailor's mouth. It hit the ceiling, lighting up the chamber in a wash of color and shadows. But the fire didn't destroy anything. Instead, it danced like a song. It warmed the metal. It curled through the air with grace. When it faded, the chamber felt alive. Jace stared in silence. He had just witnessed a miracle. The dragon let out a long, deep sigh. "Thank you. I remember my flame. Not strong. Not yet. But it lives again." Jace nodded slowly. "You're welcome. But who did this to you? Why lock you here and leave you without water for 100 years? There was silence. Then the voice came again, heavier now. "The Galactic Council feared me, not because I was cruel, but because I would not obey. I protected the weak. That frightened them." Jace frowned. "You were a protector?" "I refused to burn innocent planets. I was ordered to kill. I refused. So they turned on me. They took my freedom, my name, my flame." Jace's hands curled into fists. "That's not justice." Sailor's massive eye blinked again. "You are unlike them." Jace turned to the control panel. "Then I'll finish the job. I'll get these chains off you." Suddenly, a loud beep echoed through the chamber. Jace looked down at the control screen. A red warning flashed. "Security protocol activated." Oh no. From the ceiling, 2 circular drone eyes slid open. Out floated sleek machines, hovering, spinning, and aiming energy weapons straight at Jace and the weakened dragon. "Step away from the prisoner," came a robotic voice. Jace grabbed his wrench. "No way," he said under his breath. "I'm not leaving him." The drones locked onto him. Before they could fire, Sailor's voice boomed in Jace's head, louder than ever before. "Stand behind me." Jace dropped and rolled behind Sailor's giant claw just as the drones fired. Laser blasts hit the silver scales but bounced off with soft sparks. Sailor growled low. His head rose slowly, and from deep within his chest a dim blue light began to glow again. He inhaled. Jace held his breath. Sailor roared. A blast of blue fire shot from his mouth, stronger than before. The heat slammed the drones, melting them, midair in an instant. Metal rained down in sizzling drops. Silence returned. Jace stood, shaking. Sailor turned his head slightly. You gave me water. I give you fire. Smoke still hung in the air as Jace sat down on the warm stone floor, his hands still shaking. He looked at the melted drones. They were nothing now, just puddles of twisted metal and burning circuits. But Jace knew they wouldn't be the last. He turned to the giant creature beside him. Sailor, the silver alien dragon, had lifted his head for the first time. His wings, still stiff and dry, twitched slightly like broken sails. Jace stared in awe. You saved my life, he whispered. The dragon turned one glowing blue eye toward him, and for the first time, not just a whisper in Jace's mind, but a full voice, deep, proud, and sad, spoke clearly. So did you. Jace froze. You're speaking out loud now. Sailor nodded slowly, his voice rumbling the walls. The fire returned. Because of your water. My mind clears. My voice returns. The dragon's head lowered closer to Jace. Though massive, his movements were slow, heavy, like someone who had just woken from a terrible dream. You are not like the others. You are human? Jace nodded. Yeah, name's Jace, just a simple mechanic. I fix broken things. A strange sound came from Sailor's throat, a low hum. It took Jace a second to realize. It was laughter. You fixed something much greater, today, Jace. You fixed hope. Jace blinked. You really were a protector, weren't you? Sailor closed his eyes briefly. Yes. Long ago, I protected the small worlds, the weak voices. I was created for war, but I chose peace. The Galactic Council did not like that. They chained me here, shut off all water, left me to dry, to forget. Jace's chest tightened. That's evil. That's slow murder. Sailor's voice softened. And yet, a mechanic found me. Not a warrior, not a soldier. Just a man with kindness. Jace stood up and dusted off his hands. We need to get you out. You can't survive in here. The dragon lifted his head higher now. His neck cracked as he moved. I agree, but the chains are bound to the old Empire's core commands. They need power, alien codes to break. Jace looked at the control panels again. I can try to hack them, but they're locked behind security levels. Sailor gave a small nod. Then I will share with you. My flame! What do you mean? The dragon's eyes glowed brighter. He slowly lifted one massive claw and touched Jace's chest, right above his heart. There was no pain, only warmth. Then came the light. Jace gasped. Symbols, bright golden alien symbols, flashed in his mind. A wave of energy rushed through his thoughts. It wasn't just knowledge, it was memory. He saw Sailor flying above alien cities. He saw stars burning in the distance. He saw betrayal, thousands of warships, turning on one dragon who refused to burn a peaceful moon. And then, darkness. Jace fell to his knees, breathing hard. What was that? My truth, Sailor said gently. And now you can read the language of the ancients. Jace turned toward the control panel. Again, the strange alien words now made sense. He could read them. He could feel their function like code in his veins. He got to work. Minutes passed. He rewired old circuits. He rerouted energy from the beacon to the chain controls. Every wire felt like a puzzle, and now he had the key. Sailor watched in silence. Suddenly, with a loud hiss, click. One of the chains unlocked, then another, then another. Jace jumped back as the last one snapped. The dragon stood, dust fell from his wings like rain. Metal links crashed to the floor. The chamber trembled as the massive creature stretched for the first time in a century. Jace couldn't look away. Even weakened, Sailor looked majestic, like a living star wrapped in silver armor. You are free, Jace said quietly. Sailor turned his head, eyes shining. No, we are free. Because you stayed. The chamber still echoed with the sound of broken chains. Jace stood quietly as Sailor, the silver alien dragon, stretched his massive wings. Though weak, they shimmered like starlight. Each scale caught the dim blue light glowing softly. The dry air around him stirred with power returning. Jace had seen machines come back to life before, but never something like this. This wasn't a repair. This was a resurrection. Sailor turned his head slowly. His voice, still deep and powerful, filled the silence. I can smell the sky again, even from beneath this dirt. Jace smiled, but his smile faded quickly. We're not safe yet. That warning signal I triggered, it might have sent alerts to someone. Sailor's eyes narrowed. If the old council still watches this place, they will come. We must leave. Jace pointed toward the wall. There's a service tunnel over there. I saw it when I was working on the panels, but first I want to know what this place really is. The dragon paused. Why? Because someone built this prison for you. Someone had the power to keep a dragon chained for 100 years without food or water. I need to know what kind of monsters we're dealing with. Sailor lowered his head slightly, approving. Then follow me. I remember a chamber where lies and truths were written in the same breath. The tunnel was dark, cold, and full of sand. Jace's boots scraped along the stone floor, and Sailor followed slowly, his large body barely fitting inside. They reached a sealed metal door, with 3 rings glowing in alien script. Jace stared at the symbols. Now, thanks to Sailor's shared memory, he could read them. Memory lock. Command room. He placed his hand on the center ring. The light turned green. The door opened with a hiss. Inside, the room was wide and clean, unlike the dusty prison. Blue light pulsed from a console in the center. On the walls were holograms, records from 100 years ago. Jace stepped forward and pressed a button. A recording began to play. A tall alien appeared, wearing ceremonial armor with gold lines. He had long ears and glowing eyes. Day 3 of Dragon Containment. Sailor the Flamebearer continues to resist control protocols. He will not bend. We cannot allow a living symbol of rebellion to exist. Another voice joined in. Colder. Do not kill him. That would make him a martyr. Let him dry. Let him be forgotten. Let him become myth. The video stopped. Jace's jaw tightened. They didn't just imprison you, they erased you. Sailor didn't speak. His eyes burned with a quiet fire. Jace pressed another file. This time, it was a visual map of the moon. A red zone blinked under the surface. Energy core storage. What's this? Jace asked. Sailor moved closer. My flame. They didn't destroy it. They harvested it. What? My power was drawn out piece by piece and stored below this facility. That is why I was left weak. That is why I slept for 100 years. Jace looked down at the map. Then we need to get it back. You need to be whole. It is dangerous, Sailor warned. The core is alive, but corrupted. My flame has been twisted. I'm not leaving you like this, Jace said firmly. If there's a way to get it back, we'll find it. Suddenly, the entire room flickered. A new alert appeared on the screen. Unauthorized activity detected. Patrol unit en route. Arrival in 2 hours. Jace cursed under his breath. We've got company. Sailor turned toward the exit, fire flickering behind his teeth. Then let us move quickly. The sands hold answers, but also enemies. As they left the command room, Jace glanced back at the final line on the screen. Dragon status forgotten. He smiled bitterly. Not anymore. The desert moon's silence was broken. High above, in the dusty orange sky, a black dot appeared. It moved fast, too fast for a cloud. It wasn't natural. It was a ship. Jace and Sailor stood on a cliff near the edge of the prison facility. Beneath them, dry canyons stretched out like broken bones. Above them, death was coming. Enemy patrol, Jace muttered. Less than 2 hours turned into 20 minutes. Sailor growled low, his wings twitching. They came prepared. Perhaps they never stopped watching. Jace knelt beside an old control panel half buried in sand. It looked like a power node, something connected to the ancient defense systems. Wires sparked. A faint energy hum remained. He pulled out his tools. If I can reboot this, maybe I can activate the facility's old defense drones and reprogram them to protect us instead of kill us. Sailor's voice entered his head. And if not? Jace gave a quick grin. Then I throw a wrench at the patrol ship and hope it gets scared. The dragon rumbled with a sound that almost resembled a chuckle. Jace got to work fast. Sweat ran down his back as the hot wind picked up. He connected power cells, recharged circuits with his emergency battery, and bypassed the ancient alien, locks using the symbol Sailor had burned into his memory. The screen lit up. Defense protocol, online security, drones, standby override command. Jace entered a code. New protocol. Protect Human Plus. Sailor unit confirmed. The ground trembled. Metal hatchways popped open across the desert floor. From them, drones rose, six-legged, spider-shaped machines old but armed with lasers and pulse cannons. Their red eyes turned green. Jace stood up, panting. They're ours. Just then, the black patrol ship screamed through the sky. It circled once, then released a squad of sleek soldier drones. 10 of them, armed, fast, and deadly. Jace grabbed a fallen blaster from the old prison storage. He checked its charge. Half full. He turned to Sailor. How much fire do you have in you? Sailor's chest rose slowly, then fell. Enough to protect you. The drones attacked. Jace ducked behind a rock as blasts flew past him. His reprogrammed defense bots leaped forward, firing back with thick plasma bolts. Explosions lit the sky. Sand flew everywhere. One of the enemy drones rushed Jace directly. He aimed his blaster and fired. Once, twice. Nothing. The third shot hit the drone in its chest. Sparks flew, but it didn't stop. It raised a blade from its arm. Jace raised his wrench. Then, foom, blue fire swept in from the left. It melted the enemy drone into a puddle of glowing metal. Jace turned to see Sailor, his eyes burning and his wings partly open. The dragon's breath was fire, pure and glowing, stronger than before. I will not be chained again, Sailor said, his voice like thunder. More drones swarmed in. Jace and Sailor fought side by side, man and dragon. The battlefield was chaos. Blasts lit up the skies. The reprogrammed bots did their best, but they were outnumbered. Jace was thrown back by a small explosion. His blaster flew from his hand. A drone jumped toward him, raising its blade. But before it could strike, crack, Sailor landed in front of him with a boom. His tail slammed the drone into the canyon wall. You are not alone, human. The last few enemy drones pulled back, recognizing defeat. The patrol ship blinked a warning light and retreated into the sky. They had lost. Jace sat in the sand, coughing and laughing. We did it. Sailor folded his wings. His body trembled, exhausted but victorious. You fixed the machines, I gave the fire. Together we are strong. Jace looked up at him. No. Together we're dangerous. The wind had calmed. The battlefield was quiet now. Jace stood among broken drone parts and melted sand. The ground still smoked from Sailor's last blast of fire. All around him were signs of the fight. Cracked rocks, black burn marks, and the faint smell of hot metal. Sailor stood tall beside him, but he was breathing harder now. Each breath came slower. His wings, though partly healed, hung low. His silver scales had lost some of their glow. You used too much, Jace said, wiping sweat from his brow. I gave what I had, Sailor answered softly. But it is not enough. The flame burns low again. Jace's eyes shifted toward the red mark on the old facility map. The energy core storage, the place where Sailor's stolen power was kept. They hadn't gone there yet. He clenched his jaw. Then it's time, we're getting it back. They moved carefully through the lower levels of the prison where stone turned to steel, and the walls hummed with forgotten energy. The deeper they went, the hotter the air became. Finally, they reached a massive vault. It was sealed tight, glowing faint red. Alien markings blinked across the surface. It felt alive, like it was watching them. Jace stepped closer. The same memory code Sailor gave him now burned in his mind. He placed his hand on the center symbol. Identity matched. Flame bearer. Door opening. With a low groan, the vault split open. What they saw inside made Jace's breath catch. A giant glass chamber, filled with blue fire, floating like liquid. It pulsed. It shimmered. It roared silently. It was beautiful and angry. Sailor stepped forward. They took my flame and tried to bend it. I feel its pain. It remembers me, but it does not trust. The fire within the chamber twisted, like it was alive. It banged against the glass. The entire room shook. Jace stepped back. That's your power? Not just power, Sailor said, his voice distant. It is a part of me. My soul, carved in light. I must take it back. But if I fail, the flame could destroy us both. Jace looked at him. What do you need me to do? The dragon looked down at him, eyes glowing with warmth. Stay. Then Sailor walked into the fire. It wasn't like anything Jace had ever seen. The flame didn't burn the dragon. It wrapped around him, tested him. It roared with voices, thousands of them, angry. Confused, broken, the flame screamed, "Where were you?" And Sailor answered with silence. Then, with calm strength, I was taken, but I never stopped being me. The fire hesitated. Then it surged. It wrapped around Sailor completely, pulling him into the air. The glass chamber cracked. Jace shielded, his face as light poured out, blinding and pure. A sound followed, a roar, not of pain, but of return. A roar of remembering. When Jace looked again, the chamber was gone, and in its place stood the full dragon. No more cracked scales, no more weak breath. Sailor shined like starlight. His wings spread wide, strong and graceful. His eyes were twin suns. His voice boomed like a storm. I am whole. Jace stood frozen. You look like a god. Sailor lowered his head. No, Jace, just a dragon, with a human friend. The moment was quiet. No alarms, no danger, just firelight and trust. Then Jace chuckled. So, what now? Fly back to your galaxy? Burn the council down? Sailor gave a low rumble. I could, but I will not. Jace blinked. Why? Because now, I have something better. I have freedom. And I have you. The desert moon was silent again, but this time it was a calm silence. The prison that had once held a mighty dragon was now broken. The chains were gone. The fire was free. And the stars above seemed brighter, as if they too were watching what would happen next. Jace stood on a high ridge watching Sailor stretch his wings under the open sky. The silver dragon was no longer weak. His scales glowed with living fire, and each step shook the ground with quiet power. Are you really leaving? Jace asked, trying to sound casual, but his voice cracked just a little. Sailor turned, his glowing eyes soft. Would you ask me to stay? Jace looked down at his boots. No, yes. You've been trapped for 100 years. You deserve the sky. Sailor walked closer, lowering his head until they were almost face to face. I may have wings, Jace, but it was you who gave me the sky again. The human chuckled lightly. All I gave you was a few drops of water and a wrench. The dragon's voice rumbled, almost warm. And you stayed. When no one else did. You stayed. They stood there quietly, two very different beings, one made of fire and stars, the other of skin and steel. But in that moment they were equals. Then Sailor looked up. There is a world I must see, a mountain I once loved, a sky I swore I would fly across again. He turned slightly. But I will not go alone. Jace blinked. What do you mean? The dragon leaned down and stretched one massive wing low to the ground. "Climb on, Jace. You saved me from death. Now let me show you life." Jace hesitated for only a second. Then he smiled, slung his tool belt across his chest, and climbed up. The dragon's back was warm, like resting against the sun itself. Jace gripped the scale, handles near Sailor's neck, specially made from the dragon's armor. He didn't ask how they were there, he just held tight. Sailor opened his wings wide, and then, with a powerful push, they were in the air. The wind roared past Jace's ears. The ground vanished below. The desert moon stretched out in every direction, glowing golden in the rising. Twin suns. Jace laughed, loud and free, as they soared higher than any ship he had ever flown. Above them, the stars opened like a gate, and beyond that gate, freedom. Sailor's voice echoed in his mind again. Not tired now, not weak, but full of joy. "Jace, you didn't just fix a dragon. You reminded the galaxy that kindness can burn brighter than power." Jace grinned against the wind. "So what are we now? A mechanic and his dragon?" "No," Sailor answered. "A legend reborn. Far away, in hidden parts of the galaxy, eyes watched the sky and trembled. They saw the fire rising again, the fire they had tried to kill. But it flew now, and it remembered, and riding on its back was a human no one saw coming.